When you guys sign in, it will be blank. What's on the screen right now. The this is not blank. Each of these are courses that I have, and I've been using Adapt from fall of 2021 in the very beginning, and then have been using it all the way up until just last spring, and will continue doing it indefinitely. Uh, so before we begin, let's talk a little bit about structure. And I don't have a picture to describe it, so I oftentimes use this in words. So there are multiple levels that we're going to be dealing with in terms of mastering Adapt. And it's important in order to master these levels. And there are basically 4 levels to deal with. We have courses. Courses have assignments. And assignments have questions. So it's the top 3 level. It's really straightforward. The 4th level is way at the bottom. That's the basement, or let's say the library, and that hosts all the individual questions. And that's it. The questions that are at the base level can be used in any, can be added to any set of assignments in any organization that you want. So the base level is the community-based questions that we have out there, and then you want to populate them into assignments that are then put into courses. So what we want to be able to master by the end of today is to be able to create an assignment, create a course, create assignments, add questions to assignments. Those are the top 3 things that we want to be able to master. Because once you have those things down, then you have much of what you need. Then we will be talking, I guess it's the 4th one, then we'll be talking about learning trees and how learning trees are put together. But we're not going to be talking about how to build questions. Because building questions takes a bit of time, and invariably the questions pop up in terms of which of the technologies you want to use and how do you actually use those technologies. Some are really simple, like QTI, because it's the same sort of protocol that's used in your learning management system, which is pretty straightforward in terms of making multiple choice. But if you want to make a very advanced type of algorithmic based questions with dynamic figures and things like that in web work at iMath AS, that requires a bit more sophistication than what I have time in order to be able to do right now. That being said, it doesn't mean you can't capitalize on existing questions that are out there. And again, we have 250,000 questions for you to be able to utilize. Not all of them are auto-graded, and many of them are under constant development because we have lots of needs in order to be expanding our corpus, not just from 250,000 questions, but to multiple millions of questions in order to address the full scope of what we do. And probably needs to be somewhere in the order of 10 to 20 million questions to do what we want. Okay, so let's look at the ADAPT system right now. So again, ignore my questions right here. And actually, let me take a look here. I can switch over to demo account. So this is a demo account. I'm going to delete this course here. So it's going to look like your account. So this is what your account should look like. We currently have no courses, unless you guys have started to work ahead, which is fine enough. So let's talk about a few things off of here. So one thing is we have a nice little rocket ship. I mentioned the rocket ship in the beginning, where I said that if you click on that, that will open up the launch pad that you can use in order to peruse different parts of the Libraverse. If you click on the logo, it will always go to the top My Questions area, which is just a convenient mechanism to just go to the top, and then it's out there. Over here, you don't have this red box. That's what super administrators have that give us the ability in order to do a few things and handle stuff. You have something that says support and something that says dashboard. Anytime that you have a question, you can click on support. You can contact support and you can submit your question right here. And our team will take a look at it and address it as fast as we can. I will also mention while I'm on here is that we have this Insight knowledge base. So the Insight knowledge base is our sort of a simplified snippet of being able to go through and ask questions and check it out. So for example, if I come in here and I say learning trees, it will go through a snippet of various questions and things like that. You can think of it as facts, but they're not entirely facts, in order to address these different issues. How to create and edit learning trees, how to browse learning trees, how to do learning trees overview, etc., in order to be able to parse through it. It's a really good mechanism in order to be able to parse through. We do have a guide that you can use in order to review them. Many of them are going to, much of that guide is going to be cut into here, and you can look in order to address questions. For example, this one here is basically meant to address the question that Anton asked: is how do you import a MyOpenMath course into Adapt? So this is a convenient mechanism in order to be able to do that, including even videos to deal with various aspects that's associated with what we're doing. Um, so there are a few questions off of here. Garima asked about where do you get these questions? I'm not entirely sure the context there. Is that something that I should address now, or should we address later on?
Whenever you think it's the right time.
Well, when you say these questions, it sounds like you're referring to.
These questions, okay, these questions basically means the library, what you have, all the questions, what you have in the
Okay,
app.
we'll
So
be
from where
talking.
you got this?
Yeah, we'll talk about questions then at that point.
Okay.
Michelle asks, is there a schedule somewhere today? We didn't create a schedule for today. It largely follows the same schedule that we've done in the past, but we vary things from time to time. So start and end dates, start and end times change a bit. It's basically a presentation, and then we go into how to build courses, how to build assignments, how to add questions to the assignments. Those are the three primary components, and then we'll go into learning trees afterwards. I can't tell you exactly when we're going to be doing each one of those things because it depends upon questions and things that we have. And Neil gave a link that goes to the Insight page that's out there. So this gives you a mechanism in order to address a lot of the questions that no doubt you guys will have. And I encourage you to take a look at that. I know it's a little hidden here under the support center. We're working on figuring out ways in order to put it more front and center for people to be able to parse through. Anyways, back to this thing. That's the support, and you'll have this thing that says dashboard in the upper right-hand corner. Click on dashboard. It has 4 entries at the top here. These 4 entries are my personal collections, my personal courses, my questions, my learning trees, and my assignment templates. And I'll talk about what assignment templates are momentarily. Then below here are the 5 things that are more collective or community-based. Do a search through questions. This might address some of what Garima asked for. Browse through existing learning trees. Browse through existing public courses. That means anyone who creates a course and they're willing to let other faculty use that course without student submissions, without student enrollment, just the actual course and the questions and the structure behind it. They can browse through that. The Commons is our term for the courses that we curate. Centrally. So when we bring in, for example, OpenStax questions and we update them and go through all the work like that, that will all be formulated here for you to be able to tap into. Many of those questions are like for OpenStax chemistry, for example, there's 1,700 questions. No one in their right mind would use 1,700 questions for a specific course. Although maybe some of you are not in your right mind and you may want to use the entire collection right there. It's up to you. And then frameworks are meant in order to provide framework of learning objectives or skills that you'll be using to align your questions to in order to ensure that your course is handling the specific learning objectives that you want the course to be able to do. We have been aligning quite aggressively a range of different courses, but given the size of our corpus, it takes a while in order to do that. We're hoping to see if we can get AI in order to facilitate that better, and some of our initial tests show that that works out well. And then up here is our settings and logging out. And settings doesn't give you a lot of options off of here other than dictating your time zone and your password and things like that you have expected. So the gray bar here is a standard breadcrumbs, which tells you the structure that you're doing. So the top here is my course. I don't have any other courses to go into in order to be able to argue that, in order to demonstrate that. But as I start going through that, you'll see the breadcrumbs get bigger and bigger, but we still have only 3 structures, right? Courses, assignments, questions. So it's not going to really be a long list of things in the breadcrumbs that's out there. And that's that. So we have one of two skills I want to be able to master at the course level. One is to be able to import an existing course, and the other one is to build a new course. What I want each of you to do is to import an existing course. So if you click on here, if you click on there, you'll see a range of different courses. Now, we're going to be expanding this presentation because the number of courses that are public have been growing quite extensively. And they're going to continue to grow, and we need to have a better way in order to be able to showcase this. Courses do have the ability to be aligned to specific subjects. So you will have the ability to say, show me chemistry courses or show me engineering courses, and then it'll just show you the narrow scope of that. We just haven't tweaked it up here. So I want you to pick a course that you like. It may not be the one that you want to teach from, um, and bring it in. And I'm just going to bring in, um, let's say, Andreas's Chemistry 2100 from uh, California State University, San Bernardino. And I'm just going to import the course. This will take a moment, depending upon how complex that course happens to be. You'll come in. You may experience a question that comes up about whether this should be alpha or beta. Uh, Click whichever one you want. It doesn't matter. I'll talk about that, what that means in a moment. It comes into place, and here is the course. So I want everybody to import a course. I want to see a thumbs up from people who have done so, so I know that we can move on from there. Ruth is doing old school thumbs, but okay, I'm seeing a lot of yellow thumbs. I think that looks like most of them. Ruth has a lot of yellow thumbs. Uh, okay, I'm going to assume that everybody here has been able to import a course. Uh, so the first thing to notice that when you bring in a course, it has this red hue. Now this red hue, uh, 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 Jennifer, yes, you can come in later. So this red hue basically is the equivalent of publish in Canvas. I'm not sure about how other LMS they may call it. It basically means that the students that are enrolled in the class can actually see the class. If you flip this toggle switch, it will then make it shown, which is essentially to make it publish. And now the red hue goes away. So whenever you see a red hue, students can't see that question. Even if they're enrolled in the class, they can't do so. And that's important, especially for those of us that like to have lots of assignments. So I have my students submit an assignment every single lecture, whether it's a small assignment of a couple questions or it's a weekly assignment, or it's labs or a variety of other things. So they come into my class and they have loads and loads of assignments to do. And the last thing I want them to do when the very first day that they come into my class is get daunted by all the different assignments. So I don't release them or I don't show them to the students until it's time for them to know about that. That way I don't have a daunted infrastructure. So I have this course that's in place. This is the general organization of that. It has the title. If I click on it, it will open up the course. I'm not going to do that yet. I have that toggle I already mentioned before. Anytime you see a little question mark, if you hover over it, it will come up with actually that one's supposed to come up with it. Okay, yeah. With what's called a tooltip. And a tooltip is this little pop-up that shows right here, that's in place. Patricia, looks like you have multiple courses. Congratulations. So, and it gives a little bit of a feedback in terms of what this means, and such. So, um, you have a term, and this tells you what the term was written for that course. We'll talk about metadata and how you actually modify that afterwards, but this just comes in automatically with it. And then we have some action items. This is the general organization around the tabular description or tabular format of what we have put in place. So here's the question, here's the course shown term action items. This right here accesses the grade book. This right here accesses the course properties. This right here is clone. Anytime you see these things, it means basically copy and paste simultaneously. So you can take this course and you can clone it again. Where do we get rid of that? And now it's duplicating the course. So it's sort of like importing from itself is another way in order to do so. And there it is. And it puts the word copy at the end in order to emphasize this. This brought in the word import in order to say it's import, but naturally I'm going to want to edit those things and get that. And we can all figure out what the trash can does. So I'm going to show what the trash can does. And we go through some pain in order to make sure you can't delete things that you shouldn't be deleting easily. In this case here, you have to copy and paste the title here in order to be able to delete these things. So that is the bringing in the course. Let's take a quick look at what the course looks like. So I'm going to click on here, and it's going to provide a tabulation of the next level. Remember, course, assignments, questions. So these are the assignments. And these are the assignments, which are basically 14 homework assignments. They are available at a specific date and time. They are closed at a specific date and time. This tells you the status with respect to the current date and time, which basically means that these things closed last year. So this question is completely closed. So students first won't see any questions when they log into this course because every single assignment is hidden. Now they'll see this thing that's open, but it's been released or available for them to look at, but they're still not going to be able to submit anything because the start date and the end date all predates current date. And then I have the action items that's associated with the assignment, which is very similar to the same action items that we have with the course, which has the trash can, it has the clone, it has the properties, but instead of a checker, it has a grader. This opens up the open grader. That was the technology that we used in order to do speed grading of the assignment for open-ended submissions. Typically, it's also useful for evaluating auto-graded questions if those auto-graded questions are algorithmic, because you need to know what specific question a specific student got in order to be able to provide some guidance off of this. And this is one mechanism in order to do it. There is another mechanism out there in order to be able to facilitate that. And then that's that. So if I click on here, again, now I'm going to go into the assignment, which will give me a list of questions. And here are the questions. And Andreas has made 15 questions in this assignment. Those questions may come from a variety of different sources. He may have created his own questions. He may have used other questions in the community list of questions. It's his prerogative, of course, in order to be able to do. So this right here is a series of them. Depending upon where they come from, they may have different formulations of their titles because different people order their titles in different ways. The one thing I'll note that students, when they actually look at these things, will not see the titles. They just see question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, unless you decide you want to edit the title that the student will see. Some people do that, other people do not. So these are the orders. That's the title of the question. You can reorder or sort up here if you want to. What's most important here is this number right here. This is the adapt ID number for that question. Every question has a question ID number. That right there is the second number in this hyphenated thing. So this question here, 144922, that is that question. The first number here is the assignment number, which means this is the question that's in assignment 80860, which is the assignment number that we have here. You can see it in the URL here if you want to see it, and it's fixed. The next one here has the same assignment number, which is not surprising because we're looking at this within the same assignment, but a different question number. Same assignment number, different question number. Same assignment number, different question number. Same assignment number, different question number, etc. I can copy that by just clicking on this button here. I know that's the same icon as cloning, but in this case here, it's just copying to your clipboard. If you want to copy all the questions here, you can copy here and it'll give you a comma separated list of all the adapt ID numbers. That's useful when we start adding questions to the assignment. This right here tells me the technology that's used. These are all web work questions, which means that these are all auto-graded questions. So in other words, Andreas doesn't have to evaluate manually what students submit. This tells you the point that he has put in place. I can view the solution to that problem. For example, here's the solution that's up there. I take solutions very seriously. Solutions should be long. Solutions should be well detailed. Students should be a pedagogical experience for students to access. I hate solutions where the answer is 5. That is not a solution. That's not something beneficial for students in order to learn from. So you'll find that we go through a lot of effort when we bring questions in order to write detailed solutions. Now, are we successful at every question that we bring in? No, but we are pretty good at what we do when we bring these questions in. Okay. Then we have some action items associated with the question, including trash, including clone, and then being able to edit the question source if we have the rights to edit. And most of you don't have the rights to edit the questions that are out there. Neil asked a question, can we track if students actually read the solutions? We can, but we don't currently. It's a good question. We can do that. It shouldn't be too difficult for us to be able to track that out. One of the things that we have for the analytics is evaluating what we call time on task, which is the time that students spend solving the problem from the time that they see the problem to the time that they submit. We also have time in review, which is the time in which students go back to that question and review it as part of their learning experience for homework and for exams and such. And it may not be surprising to you that most students don't go back and review the questions, which is,
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I was asking about the review time
yeah.
thing. So,
Um, but that's a fair thing in order to ask if they can go about doing it. We're also trying to track, I think we had some issues if students saw the question. So if a student didn't submit a question, we wanted to check if they actually even had the interest to look at the question and felt that it was too hard, or they just basically said they didn't even care to do the homework. And then you can evaluate that on your own side. I don't want to evaluate it for you. And that's that. So if I click on this thing, I'm going to see the question reviewed in this tabulated fashion. I'm going to click on question view in basic mode. So it's just basically looking at the question. This is the first question that students have. This is the same second question that students have. This is the third question that they have. This is the fourth question, etc., as they go through in order to be able to address these things. If I have editing rights, I have a pencil that I can have to edit these things, and I can do a few other things out here. I will mention that this little heart here does not mean that ADAPT loves you or that this question loves you. This right here is essentially what Twitter, and I refuse to call it anything else, used in order to favoritize a question. So you can click on here and it adds to your favorite. So it's like that. So anytime you go through and you parse through the corpus of questions or someone's questions, you may find a question you like. You may just want to favoritize it and then review it at a later date. I'm going to unfavoritize this because whatever. Okay. So again, course assignment question. This is the general structure that we have here. I want to not go into this question more, this course in more detail. I want to build a new course. So this is now where complexity ensues because we have a series of metadata information that we need to put into here in order to be able to address what we're doing. So you could click on new new course, the blue button, and it comes up with a modal. A modal is just sort of like a pop-up that's integrated into the page itself. And this asks questions that you would expect to be asked for any course. And this is where I want you to be able to pop these things up and address it. So right before I jump into these questions, there were a few questions that were put into the chat room. So let me address these things out here. My course has a coordinated course. Is there a way to get a master course and share with? Yes. I mentioned alpha beta before. That's exactly what alpha beta is. Hold on, I will address that in about 5 to 10 minutes because it's basically the last part of this question down here. Neil asked about reading solutions. Patricia asked, do we bring question number into Canvas in module? I'm not sure if I understand that question. Patricia, are you still here?
Yeah. So basically, in my modules, I went and I chose the assignments for the homework. And I put those assignments in the module as page numbers because that's how they appear in the course.
Well, how about we hold off on integrating LMS to adapt?
Okay.
Because I have a series of things to show you behind that, and that may address what you're doing, and it provides a better context for being able to address it. That's a little bit out of the way of what we're talking about right now.
Okay.
Okay, so here's a modal. Let's address these questions. The first one is to address a school. It should pop up with the school that's associated with your campus. But since demo doesn't have one, I'm going to be from the ABC Beauty College, which is something I've always wanted to pursue. I have the course name. So this is chemistry is for lovers. If anyone's in Virginia, Mohammed is, he will know exactly what I'm talking about. This is the discipline. This makes it easier for us to be able to do meta tags or do searches in order to identify what courses are out there. If you don't have a discipline here that fits in with what you're doing, you say, I don't see my discipline, and then it submits a request to us to add it to here. So we curate these disciplines for people to make an established framework for people to work off. Otherwise, it will start to get messy, misspellings and things like that for everybody that goes into place. So I said this was right here going to be chemistry. Let me down there. Public description. This is public. I really love my cats. So faculty, when they look at public questions, they can see the public description. Students, when they register for the class, they will see the public description. So it's oftentimes a good idea to grab the catalog description for your course and just pop it down there, just make it convenient. This is what it's meant to handle, and then that's that. The private description is private. It's private to only you, or if you made it public, made the course public, and someone imports it like what I did before, it will come in with the private description. So I hate this class and cats too. Put that down there. It's good commentary. After the class is over, you may want to put some context behind it, like, I really want to do this, 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 and this, but it's summer and I'm not going to do it right now. I want to relax. I'm going to come back and say, okay, these are the things I wanted to be able to address in this course and be able to move forward. Think of it as commentary that's connected to that. If your textbook that you use for the class has a URL, you can paste it in here. This is optional. Anything that doesn't have an asterisk on here is optional. So if you have a LibreText book, you can put the URL in there. It's just meta tag. Students will see it and click on it if they want to go about doing it. If you're not using a LibreText OER textbook, you'll make me cry, but that's okay. And you can still paste it in there, paste in whatever you like. Okay, modality. For this sake, I only want to talk about traditional. I will talk about this in a little bit later on about how you can actually do these other formative approaches for doing things. Section and CRN, I only want you to type 1 and 1. For those of you that teach large classes, like when I teach my very large general chemistry class, it consists of 550 students. I have 16 sections in that class. Each section has its own unique course. Its own unique lab date and time, and recitation date and time. Yeah, it has its own course registration number connected to it, and I need to be able to organize them independently of each other for a variety of reasons. For example, lab due dates will vary based on when the labs are actually put together. So right now it's 1 and 1. Don't be surprised if this disappears because I don't think it's necessary to be added here. We can add it to a different spot. Term is required. So I'm going to say summer of let's make this the summer of love, since it falls in line with the title of this course. I have the start date, which I'm going to start today. I have the end date, which I'm going to do November 21st. Okay, so hopefully everyone's following along. This shouldn't be too complicated so far. Now we have public. So this right here is set as no, because many of you are just playing around and making junk courses. So it's not important for other people to see your junk courses as they put together. When you feel that you've made a course that you want other people to be able to see, to capitalize on, and to essentially share, you click on public as yes. Again, you can hover over the question mark in order to get more feedback regarding this. Again, I will want to reinforce is that faculty do not get access to your student submissions or your student enrollments ever. All they get is essentially the formulation of what the course looks like in the absence of student submissions. I'm going to click this as no because I'm just making a junk class that's out there, and I don't want to gum things up and have people cut through junk classes. And routinely we go through, and if we find courses that are ill-prepared but public, we will go in and flip it into private using our own godlike powers. Okay, so now let me ask this question. Let me address this thing down here, and before I get back to alpha and beta. If my campus, in this case here, ABC Beauty College, has set up a connection between ADAPT and its LMS, there will be an option on here to say yes or no to making this an LMS course. If it's an LMS course, I then need to couple it into a Canvas course, or sorry, into my LMS course manually, or there's a few switches that does it automatic, depending upon the nature of the connection that's out there. In this case here, ABC Beauty College has not integrated ADAPT into its LMS. So as a faculty member at ABC Beauty College, I can only use these things off of the LMS. I still have the ability to download scores, and I can manually upload scores to my LMS via CSV file. And about 60 to 70% of faculty use that as the primary mechanism in order to pass their grades to their LMS, not direct LTI coupling. Although that's changing and growing as we actually evolve. So, Dr. Camus asked, is ADAPT and LTI integration? I'm not entirely sure. ADAPT can couple to LMSs via LTI 1.3. It can also couple to Canvas via API, in addition to the LTI. API being Application Programming Interface. What that means is that you just press a couple buttons and then it creates all the modules into Canvas for you and links it all together automatically. In the absence of API, you have to create the module and then link it over, create the module and link it over. And that right there can be really time consuming depending upon how many assignments that you actually have put in place for these things. We haven't set that up for the other LMSs, but we probably will at some point in the future. But Canvas is the most important LMS in California, and that's what we've been focusing on so far. Ruth asked a question, how will that work if the campus allows us to use ADAPT and Canvas on a case-by-case basis? I've always been a little perplexed about how that operates, to be honest, because Canvas can provide limited capabilities for how you work with it. I think if they do it right, it should operate perfectly fine for you if they do it at an individual level. But if they force it to only at a specific course level, it may have some additional complications behind that. We've had a few problems with certain campuses in terms of coupling that together. The biggest problem is in the Fresno systems that we've been fighting with, and other campuses have been a little bit more reticent about giving us full access to it, even though LTI doesn't allow us to do much at all, even if we were nefarious users, which of course we're not. So
our campus, our district will only allow us to have it integrated if we send them whatever book we're using. Right now, as you know, I'm just building this and testing it, but I want to build it and test it within the Canvas setting, but I'm not choosing a book. So they're saying, well, then they can't test the accessibility, which
well, accessibility is accessibility we can address.
Okay.
So if you send a submission ticket, we can actually go into detail behind it.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. There are VPATs and there are other things meant in order to address those things. And we're very solid with the way we handle accessibility, at least at the core technologies. So,
Gotcha. Thanks.
okay. So the last thing, which I skipped over, was this alpha. So alpha beta is our re-terminology of master slave. We just don't want to use that terminology because it offends some people. And the idea behind here, and this was a question, I can't remember who brought it up in the chat, where we're able to make a primary course, which is an alpha designated course, that then you can take courses that are designated as beta and they tether to it. So if you update the alpha course, the beta courses then can be updated simultaneously, or they have the ability in order to agree to update to the alpha course. So they do have the flexibility to go their own way, to reuse the lyric to Fleetwood Mac, but they don't have to. They can be coupled together. This is useful for handling of adjuncts and other temporary instructors that come in where we can say, here are all the courses that are already aligned for your class. Go at it and have fun. So it's alpha beta. So if a course is designated as an alpha course, I am then giving permission to other people to import it as a beta course. The problem with that is I start to have limitations in terms of what I'm allowed to do as an alpha course because I have responsibilities to the other people who are tethered to it. So if I delete things, it can interfere with their courses and it comes in with some sort of loopholes and things like that. So you have to be careful about designating yourself as an alpha course unless you really want to do so. I would recommend ignoring that. It still provides people the opportunity to copy your course and import your course. It's not going to be alpha tethered to it. They just take a snapshot at that period in time. There's a question by Tigran.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, let's say if you have an alpha course, but you have multiple courses and you change one, you could change all of them, right? If you have like, if you want to teach multiple courses that are similar, would this
Yes,
be?
well, it doesn't change. It gives you the option. So the owner of the beta course, even if it's yourself, will have an option that says the alpha course has been changed. This is how it's changed. Do you want to accept? So it doesn't force it onto the instructor. I guess we could make a alpha prime. That means it's always mapped exactly to it. But right now we're letting the user approve it manually.
Okay, thank you.
That being said, an alpha prime may not be or a beta prime may not be a bad idea to just basically be 100% locked to the alpha class, no matter what the alpha class does. But that would be something that the instructor that owns the beta course would have to agree upon. So, okay, so if I did everything right and I click save, it should create a course. If I did something wrong, it will tell me I've done something wrong and tell me where I need to go with a little red text below it in order to be able to do it. So I want everyone to create an empty course right now. If you didn't already do so, give me a thumbs up. I guess there are no other fingers that you can bring up here, which is probably good for me in order to make sure that we're all set up. Ruth is not going old school anymore. Jason loves his thumbs. Kurt's old school. Is anyone having any problems creating this thing? These are the standard questions that you would expect to ask for creating a course.
Delmar,
Yes.
I have a quick question. When I click LMS and yes, I do not see the message that you showed that your university or college is not configured with the adapt. Your Canvas is not adapt. I don't see that message. That means it's automatically
What campus are you at?
Rio Hondo College.
Yeah, you're already, at least as of 2 months ago, you guys were pending. I can take a quick look in order to see if you are.
Okay, thank you.
So according to us, you guys are fully in track. So you don't have that button. You just basically have a switch. Do I make an
Yes,
LMS course or do I not? Because you're doing it.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
that's
okay.
because your campus is enlightened and is already integrated into our system, as is about 80 other campuses.
Wow, okay. Thank you so much.
So let me see here. I think I need to get back into what we're doing. Okay. There are no other questions. There was something that came up here, and Neil gave a link to the construction guide, and we have released the second. Josh, do you think you can give the link to your second construction guide?
Yes, will do.
Because we added 2 chapters in there that we just updated for Adapt, one for instructors and one for students. And then you can always do a link, do a search to the support insight system, and you'll see videos connected to those things, and they'll start to be better integrated. We're still migrating things over and polishing that new infrastructure in place. We're going to decommission the edition 1, which is the link that Neil put together. Okay, let's see here. Yudong?
Yes, can I have a contact form for that my school can contact you guys for the LMS?
When you're let me give you a link here. How to interface to LMS, coupling Canvas. Not sure. I need to find the exact page that is meant for IT in order to be able to do. But if they submit a ticket here, contact support, there's a category that's integrating LibreText content platform, and that's how they can actually.
I can get that. Thank you.
Yeah. That's the mechanism we have. We have videos and things in order to deal with it, depending upon which LMS they have, in order to what keys and things like that, because every LMS has its own unique aspect associated with it. And it's expanding. D2L should be available hopefully at the end of this month. Schoology probably within the following month, although that's a small LMS used predominantly in the K-12 space. And we just introduced Moodle last month. That's there. So anyways, okay, let me get back to what we're doing. Here's my course. Chemistry is for lovers. I can open it or close it. It doesn't really matter. And I can click on it, and it's a new course, and new course has no assignments, which is not surprising. You can see again the breadcrumbs here introduces the course that I'm happen to be in right here. And again, the next level down is to make assignments, which is what we're going to be doing. But before we get to assignments, let's just talk a little bit about the properties of the course. So we dealt with some of the properties of the course when we created that little modal that popped up here, but there are many other aspects of how a course is used that are not reflected in those general properties. So if we click on course properties right here, it'll pop up with a series of properties or additional entries here that are important for how the course is created. The top one is general information, and that essentially has all the information that we have for the LMS, for the course when we created the course. So if you didn't like what you've written down in here, you can do so. You can re-update them if you like, as you see fit. Is there a question, George? Okay. The one exception here is you'll see this thing that's called whitelisted domains. I want to hold off on that and discuss that within the greater context of student submissions. So if I click on here, I get some sections. Right now, I only created one section, section 1, CRN number, 1 access code, and actions. Now, if I made a course with 16 of them, I would then continually add the sections, let's say 2 and 2, and continue to do this and move on off of there. Again, when I have 16, I have 16 of them. The reason that each course has its own course registration number is that when I have to submit my scores, when I submit my final grades to Banner, it requires the course registration number in order to do that for each section. So we just baked it in that it has to be wired into each section off of here. If you're coupling everything to your learning management system, this means absolutely nothing. As does the section number, because you're probably only doing one section that's out there. Hold on a second, Meg. Let me finish this and I'll get back to you. Then we have access code. And right now, and we're going to be changing this soon, or at least augmenting it, it's set up so that students can enroll in your course if they have the access code. And that's it. So you can submit the access, you can send an email to your students and they can submit the access code and they can register for your course. Anytime you want, you can reset the access code, and that effectively removes the old access code. So it's not there. So that's the way that we have been using these things. I will mention that students do a wide variety of things, and we get exposed to a wide variety of things that students do. And one thing that pops up off of here is that students, when they get an access code, they will register with their campus email address. And then for some reason, they'll register with their Gmail account. And then they'll register with their Yahoo account. And then they'll register with whatever other Hotmail account that's there because they just keep on doing that. So we introduced this whitelist domain where it basically says only people who have email addresses from this domain, and it's grab the domain from my email address. So it's at demo.com, will be able to register. So if my campus, I can come in and say ucdavis.edu, and now anyone who has a ucdavis.edu email address can register, but only that specific email address. That makes it convenient because when the students come in with a variety of different email addresses, they invariably do homework with a variety of different email addresses. They want to have them all consolidated. We don't have an infrastructure to kind of consolidate submissions across multiple accounts and then bring it together. It's a bit more annoying that's out there. Neil asked the question, would students at UC Davis be accepted? I think it will be. I think it will handle subdomains off the top of my head. I would need to confirm that. Let's see, there are a few questions here. Meg, does a section number have to align with the section number at your campus? No. There's no reason for this thing to align with that. It just makes it convenient for you to do so. Will you show how to embed to Canvas later? I will show you a video on how to embed because my campus hasn't set up LTI and I haven't pushed it because I don't care to use I don't like Canvas I just don't use Canvas. So I don't particularly care to couple it in. Their paperwork is actually quite aggressive for doing so. But I need to do it at some point in those. So but I'll show you a video of how you actually integrate embed adapt courses into Canvas. Okay, so does anyone have any questions or concerns off of this? It's pretty straightforward in how it's implemented. What we are going to be doing is if your course is a LMS course, it will bring the roster in. That's one of the things that the new 1.3, it's not so new anymore, but what LTI 1.3 does is allows rosters to be moved back and forth. So we can actually just automatically sign them up. And a few other things that we're going to be doing in order to try to avoid access codes, because even though we have this sort of protection, students still have problems with access codes. And I'm not entirely sure why. And our way to try to remove that is just to remove access codes as an option on how to operate. Yes, Tigran.
So if we don't need the access code, right? If we embed it into like let's say Canvas,
No, actually, currently you still need it.
Oh, okay.
So you give it to the students, and the students, the very first time that they access Adapt, will ask for the access code, and they paste it in, and then they never get asked again. But I'm expecting that within the next month that the rostering system will be in place. So it will grab the roster from your Canvas, and then they're automatically create the counts and already couples it together. We just haven't done that yet. Any other questions?
I have a follow-up question.
Sure.
So I'm assuming you embedded it into Canvas, but you have to use the access codes to get it to use Adapt, and then when it's embedded, they'll automatically see it. Am I correct with my logic?
They will, yes, it will be a module in Canvas.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. So graders. I'm in a large R1 institution. I have TAs in order to do my grading for me. I know that not everyone has that luxury. So I have a mechanism such that I can assign specific students as graders for my class. And that's useful for open-ended grading. Obviously, auto-graded, I don't need them in order to be able to do that stuff. I have TAs because I have labs in order to run, and that's what they are well suited for doing. And this provides a mechanism to do invitations for them. For those of you that don't have TAs or any sort of external graders, you don't need to deal with grading a component. Students, once students enroll, this acts as a roster. I can see what the students' names and details and things like that. I don't want to show that because that's a violation of FERPA. So I definitely don't want to record that for you guys. You guys don't have auto release. So I'm going to skip over that. It will be available soon. Basically, the point of auto release is when I do getting back to how I mentioned how I do my courses, where I have 30 to 40 assignments, and some of those assignments are practice homeworks, so they're meant for formative use. I don't want to show those assignments until a certain number of days before the assignment is open for students to submit. Again, I don't want students to be daunted by all the different things that they need to do in this class. So I can decide when I want it to be available, when it's released. I can decide if I do delayed assignments, which we'll be talking about after the break, that when I release the scores and solutions and statistics off of here, this will be available soon to you guys. It's available to me because of my status off here. Okay, non-update revisions. Now, this is where things get a bit more complicated, and it's important in order to emphasize what we're trying to do. So we're trying to build an infrastructure such that it's a community-based infrastructure so that individuals can create questions and share those questions. So sometimes people liken OER to sharing is caring. So we go about doing that. When we bring in questions, we invariably go through and edit them and update them and polish them and make them algorithmic and do a lot of different things in place in order to be able to update them. And that takes time. Now, this is the issue that we have here. Let's say, since Neil's the only one, okay, Sandra also has the video on here, so I'm going to use those two examples since they're the only ones who I can see. So let's say Neil makes a series of questions. So it makes a whole bunch of beautiful genetics questions that Sandra wants to use, which is exactly what we want to be able to do in this community-based approach. So Sandra makes these questions and assigns it for her students, perhaps even uses them for some quizzes or from exams that on Adapt. It's all fine and dandy until Neil comes in and wants to change those questions and tweak them. Okay, so what does Sandra do? Well, if we have no infrastructure in place here, Sandra's homework, Sandra's exams will be changing on her. And she probably is not that excited about that. Her students may not be overly excited with the question changing on them as they're doing the homework or as they're doing the exam. So how do we actually go about addressing that? Well, the approach that we have is we introduce a revision system. Now, it's only set in place for 2 of the 4 technologies. We're going to be expanding it when we get a little bit more capabilities in place. But it's essentially this, that when you bring in web work or the QTI native questioning, you bring in a snapshot in time of that question at the time you brought in. If that question gets updated, it will not automatically update my use of that question in my course. I have the ability in order to manually update it, because if this is done, it will give me a list of questions that says these questions have been updated. I can then look at the questions in order to be able to address it and update it individually, or I can do it auto update that brings in the whole course that's in place. So this is part of a scaffold system or a protection system in order to allow us to still do a community sharing is caring approach, but still maintain the fidelity, the integrity of what we've created that doesn't change on us as we actually move forward. And that's why it's in place and that's why it's there. What I typically do when I bring in a course like that is I flip auto update on. And then as the questions get updated, it will automatically be updated on my course. As soon as a student enrolls in the class, the auto update turns off. Now, why do I go about doing that? Let's say that Neil comes in and changes the question. So instead of asking 3 questions, it asked 4 components in the sub-question. That right there fundamentally changes the way the database stores that information. And we can't automatically rely on users in order to understand if the database gets distorted like that. So what we do is if someone changes and we want to update it, if a student has already submitted it, we wipe out all submissions and then bring it back and then update the question. And there are lots of warnings behind this. That's the only way that we can run effectively unless we rely on educating everyone how databases work and how their questions are formulated and things like that. And that right there is going to be a nightmare. So we chose the easy path behind it. We feel this is exceedingly important in order to operate it. And I don't know of any other platform that operates in this way, or at least homework platform operates with this sort of capability. Again, it's a feature of the community-based aspect of what we are. This is not a one-size-fits-all approach. Everything's constantly being updated. Everything's constantly being improved. And it's meant in order to make it effective for people to benefit from the improvement, but not have it get in the way of their use of things. There were a few comments that looks like they're all going under the topic of the construction guide, which Josh is handling, so I won't jump in there. Okay, so let me go back to my course properties. That was non-updated revision. Accessibility redirect. So this adds another level of complexity behind here. And this comes into accessibility, which I think Patricia brought up here. So accessibility is exceedingly important for how we operate. Now, how many of you guys have heard from your campus administrator, campus accessibility or campus administration, if something's not accessible, you shouldn't use it? Okay. Those people who I can actually see raise their hands. It's a common mantra that's thrown out there. It's not entirely correct. You can use things that are not accessible as long as you have an alternative that is accessible. And that's a key aspect behind these things. So as we use new technologies, and new technologies are constantly being developed with lots of bells and whistles and pretty things and things moving all over the place, that's really great for those of us that are not visually impaired. But when things are visually impaired, they start to get in the way. And they get in the way significantly depending upon the nature of that technology. Now, why am I emphasizing this? The core technology around ADAPT itself is accessible. It's gone through multiple levels of review. It handles WCAG 2.1 accessibility. We're very comfortable with what it is. The questions, on the other hand, people can create questions in an inaccessible manner. Now, while we are using things like QTI, which has like Canvas, right? It has 7 questions. If you use those questions, you'll always make things accessible. That's fine. But when you start going into the more advanced things, the H5P, the web work, the iMath AS, you have lots of flexibility to construct things in a variety of different ways. And either with H5P, because it has some technology issues, many of the questions, in fact, most of the questions in H5P are not accessible. Web work and iMath AS have the ability to make accessible questions, but you need some guidance in order to be able to pursue that. And we have templates and things in order to do that. But those questions are intrinsically code-based, and people can code up whatever they want if they have the comfort in order to be able to do so. So I'm not trying to scare you guys off behind these things. I'm trying to bring in the realities of how things, and more specifically, a specific aspect of how ADAPT deals with this. So what we have in place is an accessibility redirect. So when we actually start looking at questions, which we're not going to be doing until after lunch Pacific time, a question has content associated with how the student views it. But if a student is designated as requiring an accessibility redirect, we can actually go to a separate block that can be handled, that can handle accessibility if the primary technology is not accessible. So, for example, drag and drop. If you guys have seen this sort of drag and drop questions where you have a series of options, you drag something, you drop off of, that's all fine and dandy, again, if you are not visually impaired. If you are visually impaired, you can't use drag and drop questions. So if you follow the draconian, if it's not accessible, you can't use it. They basically say, the accessibility people say, you cannot use it, period. However, 99.9% of students could use it quite fine. If you can formulate that question, the drag and drop, into a series of multiple choice questions, which are using our technology intrinsically accessible, you can then provide the alternative for those students that require it. They can go to the multiple choice questions, while the students that don't require it can use the non-accessible version. That's fully compliant with ADA. And that's what ADAPT has set up here. So I can identify specific students and track and argue which ones of them require an alternative technology for their individual question. So that means that you can actually use technologies that are not accessible as long as you build a secondary question in order to handle students that need it. It's more effort, but it does provide you the ability to do more with it than what you'd be able to do otherwise. And I don't know of any other platform that does anything like that, although it's not necessarily rocket science in order to be able to implement that. So when I have students enrolled in this class, I have a series of students here, and I can select that they can either use an accessibility technology, that's a multiple choice, for example, or I can switch to text-based, and it just requires an open-ended grading of that question. And as long as I give the scores out to the students simultaneously from the ones that require accessible and not accessible, in other words, I'm not changing the way I interact with the students depending upon whether they require accessibility, I'm fully compliant with ADA. So, okay. Tethered courses, if I have a beta course tethered to my course, it's set up like this. This probably should just be completely neglected because it's not an alpha course. Tigran, your hand is up. Did I miss a question, or is it just residual?
Actually, like for the accessibility one, like do you make another question or how's that work?
Yes,
Like,
you have to make another question.
and then you just, so then instead of having that question, they get the other question.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, cool. I just want to make sure I understood what you were saying.
It'll make more sense when you actually see the question itself, because we actually have 4 blocks, and one block is dedicated for accessibility. So it'll make it clearer for you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay. I have the ability to shift the dates of my course collectively across the board. So if I'm actually made the course up for spring and I want to use it for fall, I can take the course and then shift it around for specific dates and specific times to make it convenient, so I don't have to worry about massive changes across. I may have to tweak things a little bit if it's on a weekend, or however I should structure it, but it's a lot easier than trying to move things from one part of the year to another part of the year. Assignment group weights, if you're doing your LMS, if your course is an LMS course, you don't need to worry about group weights, because all your scores are going to your Canvas or whatever LMS you're using, and you do all the weights and you do the rubric and everything there. This is for people who don't do that, who use ADAPT as the homework systems, as the rubric-based approach, which is me, for example. So one of the reasons I push that in there. Letter grades has the same rubric that you would expect from any LMS that's out there. I can decide when I want to release scores. One thing that I do have implemented are Z-scores. For those of you that are not familiar with Z-scores tells you how many standard deviations you are away from the mean if you're in place. students ask for, whenever they get the exam, they ask for their mean and standard deviation. This is a way for me to actually give them something that's a better metric for how to evaluate them, because I think my students can handle Z-scores, but I understand that if you're not in a physical STEM course, you may not want to share STEM course, or if your class is smaller than 30, 40 or so, the statistics themselves get a little awry, and you may not want to share Z-scores because it just becomes messy. Students overinterpret it. Unguided submissions. This is part of grading. This basically tells me which open-ended questions haven't been graded. I do this because when I have a team of 10 to 15 graduate student TAs, not all of them are doing their work, and I need to make sure that they are all grading it, because I have 550 students, and it's easy for many of them to slip by. Embed properties. This is if I want to adapt into a different workshop. I can into a different web page, like a LibreDex page. I can decide what I want to show off of that. Testers. This doesn't really matter much to most of you, if not all of you. Adapt can be used in testing centers. So we do this in Arkansas, where I think another campus, I can't remember off the top of my head, where the faculty member will build the exam up in Adapt, and then the student goes to the testing center, and the testing center proctors the exam and basically clicks a button, and then has 90 minutes or whatever time off of it in order to be able to solve right there. But they can proctor, they can review the student's behavior off of that. Analytics. This we have. Oh, it's actually set up now, but it now needs to process it. So one of the problems that it's not a problem. So it looks like the dashboard is all in place, but it needs to go through the data that's been collected. So there's no data collected yet. So this is no data yet. If I've done this for one of my other courses that I have collected data for, it may take up to 12 hours in order to process, because we don't do it real time, because that would take a lot of effort. We do a batching system twice a day in order to be able to update these things and identify nothing. There's no data, so there's not really anything to describe there. Gradebook. The gradebook for my course does not look overly impressive. I have no students, I have no assignments, so it's basically empty, but this will start to be populated as I move forward. And reset course. The reset course is the nuclear option. The reset course wipes away all student submissions, all student enrollment. It's like this course is completely new. I would liken it to Ready Player One, the Cataclysm, if you've actually seen that film. It comes in and it completely wipes everything clear. Now, why do we have this? So we ask faculty to wipe their course, to reset their course 100 days after the course is over. And then we pester the instructors every month for another year to wipe those things. We do not want to sit on student data. If there are reasons for doing so, for example, you have an IRB approved research plan or something along the lines that you need to sit on the data, then I understand and we can actually approve that. But we don't want to sit on those data because we consider it radioactive. And the last thing we want to do is to have a large stockpile of radioactive material that we are responsible for. We take it very seriously, our custody of the material, but we don't want to have this to be too big to cause an issue. Everything is hackable. If the full onslaught of some country out there that likes to hack into things decides they want to do it, we're not going to be able to stop them, but we can at least minimize their impact when it happens. We've never had a security breach, so that's it. So these are the properties associated with this course. So at this point, I suggest we take a break. We have created a course. We've gone through some of the properties associated with that course. It's an empty course. We have imported a course which has some details behind it, which adds a little bit of complexity there, but it has the same sort of infrastructure in place for a new course. What we're going to do after We'll take a 10 to 15, take a 10 minute break in a moment. And then we'll come back and then we'll start adding assignments to the course. After about a half hour of adding assignments and looking through the properties assignments, we're going to take a half-hour lunch break. I'm sorry I didn't make the agenda up for you guys. I should have. And then we'll come back and we'll start talking about adding questions to the assignments that we have in place. And then depending upon how much time we have, we can go into learning trees or other aspects that you guys may have a question for. Ruth has her hand up.
Yeah, my question is if we reset a course in Adapt, will the data still be available in our Canvas course?
Yes. Yeah.
That's because I could see
so LTI will not give us the ability to delete data from your Canvas course.
So I'll always be able to go back if a student contests a grade or something and see it in Canvas. It's just going to be gone from your world.
Yeah. So when we talk about it, when we get back from the assignment, we'll talk about that we have two grade books. We have a grade book at the assignment level, and we have a grade book at the course level. The course level gives you the grade book grades per assignment, and this is similar to what Canvas does. But the assignment grade book gives you the grades per question, and it's like that. And Canvas doesn't store that information. At least they don't store it in their grade book. It's kind of in their analytics, but I'm not entirely sure how it handles that from an external approach off of it. So we have lots of information on every data submission and every date and time and things like that. And much of it we haven't tapped into in order to build into the analytics because we're still releasing the analytics off of there. So there's a lot more information that you may want for IRB approval. So if someone comes in and says this question here versus this question there and submission, things like that, like you don't know. Like, for example, you don't know from your LMS information alone what the student submitted. You just know the score. Okay. If you want to know what the student submitted in order to evaluate that for partial credit or something like that, you need to go to Adapt in order to look and say, well, this student submitted this value here. Oh, this is a different interpretation and this is wrong or things like that type of thing.
So just the same platform. I have to go to Connect to see what the student submitted. I can see that on Canvas.
You said you cannot see it on Canvas.
I can't on Canvas or on Connect, but I can just look quickly at Canvas and see the grade, but the detail is in publisher. Got it.
So we've had some campuses that have asked in order to store it for 1 year afterwards, which is reasonable time for doing so. We just selected 100 days because it made sense. We don't do anything until 1 year afterwards for being draconian. It's entirely up to you. When you do reset a course, it will ask you to download the grade book. And we'll do a dump off of that. We could potentially make that dump a lot more exhaustive, but then you would need to have the right tools in order to cut into it, in order to find the information that you want and things like that, which is a little bit beyond what we built Adapt in order to be able to do. Okay, so Lisa,
thank you.
If you're here, I'll be posting all the recordings onto YouTube, and then you can take a look at it at your leisure. Sandra tried to reset a course and got an error code. I just copied the course instead. I'm not sure what that error code is. I'd like to take a look at that. Angel asked about Los Positas College. That's separate from the Chabot College LMS. Is that correct?
So that is the same district, but a different college within the district.
Yeah, I could have sworn I heard that it was, but I don't see it in. Could it be called something else?
Nope, Las Positas. That's the only name.
Okay. When you signed in, did it when you made that course, did it give you an option to make it an LMS course?
Yes, I have the yes and no button.
Okay, then it's hooked up. I just it might be hooked up under a different name. What was your district's name?
It's Chabot Las Positas College. So it's the two community colleges
it's
combined.
hyphenated. Okay, that's Then I don't know. Like we don't have it explicitly here, but maybe it's folded in under the Chabot
So
college.
the URL that you have right there, it has both colleges, so probably that's why.
Okay.
It's Chabot Las Positas College Community District. Yeah.
Okay. So it's just that we changed that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It
Thank
looks
you.
like it's cool. If you have those options, and it should be ready to go.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Appreciate that.
Okay. So it's 11:27. Let's get back here in 10 minutes. At 11:37 Pacific time. We're going to make it relatively quick in order to be able to do assignments. We will take a break for lunch, and then we can come in and do so. Patricia, hold off on your question until we come back, please. So take a break, go out and dance, and then I'll see you in 10 minutes.